Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about the Open Group Architecture Framework. Our group consists of LaTresha Reed, Wilbert Reed, and Meredith Davis. So just a little bit of background on the Open Group Architecture Framework. They are self-defined as the de facto global standard for enterprise architecture. They strive to organize and address a business's critical needs, and it's actually free of charge for internal and non-commercial use. TOGAF consists of 4 interconnecting levels of architecture domains. The first one is data architecture. This consists of logical and physical data assets. The next one is technology. This consists of hardware, software, and network infrastructure. Moving on, we have business, which includes business strategy, governance, and key business processes. And then finally, we have applications, which is the blueprint for the systems to be executed. The TOGAF seeks to provide 4 main goals. The biggest is providing companies an evident return on investment. They also seek to make effective use of resources, and this is both to save money and an enterprise's time. By diminishing those communication barriers, this ensures everyone in the enterprise will be on the same page. So there's not that lack of information flowing between departments. Everything is flowing and everyone is on the same page. Finally, the Open Group seeks to provide a free framework for those enterprises using it for internal and non-commercial use, because they don't want enterprises to feel as though they're locked into an EA solution. The 3 pillars are meant to be the way for enterprises to achieve the 4 goals that I just mentioned. The first pillar is enterprise architecture domains, and this consists of business, applications, technical, and data architecture. The second pillar is architecture development model. This is also referred to as ADM, and this is a thing that actually is able to develop the enterprise's architecture. It consists of 8 different steps to identify where the enterprise currently is, and it determines where it needs to be. It's of popular opinion that ADM is what makes TOGAF stand out and one of the most effective of its kind. Many say that it's the heart of it. So this is likely why it's utilized by 80% of Global 50 companies and 60% of Fortune 500 companies. It's just very solid. And the final pillar consists of enterprise continuum, which is what is tracking the architecture solutions on an industry generic range. And that also includes more customized options as well. Overall, TOGAF experiences great success in helping enterprises achieve their goals. Not only has it helped many meet their objectives, but it also allows these objectives to be both systematic and repeatable. Errors are reduced in order to ensure the enterprise stays on budget. Okay, a little bit of background. So in 1995, TOGAF was developed by the Open Group. Initially, it was a methodology for technical architecture, and it was modeled after the U.S. Department of Defense. It was in December 2001 where they delivered the new technical edition, followed by a year later, they delivered the Enterprise Edition. Both of these editions were simply focused on providing consistent processes for architectures still in a developmental mode. And in 2005, they became a trademark registered to the Open Group. It actually wasn't until April 2018 when the largest amount of changes were made. And some of these changes include increased rigor and elimination of unnecessary differences, but all of these ensure consistent processes and output. TOGAF 9.2 was actually developed in collaboration with the world's leading IT and 300 architecture forum member companies. And also, as of 2018, TOGAF has over 77,500 certified individuals.
All right, moving on to the related works. The first article that we would like to talk about is the assessment of enterprise architecture implementation using the Open Group Architectural Framework. In this article, the medical device manufacturer that was evaluated remained anonymous. In this article, it evaluated the organization based on one of the four architectural domains, the business architecture. The case study was based on an interview with the financial control that was responsible for the Management Information System Department. The enterprise business strategy, annual report, interview script, researchers' field notes, and other collected data were analyzed using the within case analysis. This helped to gain information on the organization's main concern in achieving its business strategic success and supplied the data that would assess the organization's current EA practices against the TOGAF ADM phases. As a result of the analysis, it was found that the organization did not have a clear EA structure. Some of the business strategies were able to be modeled into understanding the organization's vision. Cluster documentation of the organization's business objectives, as well as their standard operating procedures, were found to fall under the scope of the business architecture. Moreover, their use of the MRP system and other applications like access-based systems showed that there was information systems. After this assessment was conducted, the organization agreed that by implementing the open group architectural framework, it will enable them to perform enhancements in a more structured manner. In this next article, entitled Design and Implementation of Government Cloud Computing Requirements, TOGAF, this article provided a wealth of information into the major drivers and barriers in government cloud computing implementation. It also gave insight as to how TOGAF can exhibit several strengths in a government context. However, as it relates to the main focus of this paper, which was on how TOGAF could address the government cloud implementation within the context of Saudi Arabia, it came extremely short of expectation. Nevertheless, there was a positive indication of future work and a progressive outline as to the steps they desired to take to accomplish their goals. The value that this study can uncover if they are successful is hinged on Saudi Arabia's massive support and implementation of government cloud computing technology. The Saudi Arabia government is facing numerous challenges with this implementation. Moreover, providing a concrete solution to this problem through research would open the door to encourage government entities worldwide to take the leap. In the article, TOGAF Adaptation for Small and Medium Enterprises explored whether or not TOGAF would be beneficial in a small and medium business enterprise environment. TOGAF is a well-known framework among large enterprises that have plenty of money and resources to invest in their enterprise architecture. However, small and medium businesses have to really count up the cost to consider whether or not implementation of TOGAF would yield a reasonable return on investment. Due to the lack of research on this topic, a literature review of this topic was not of much use. Therefore, they decided to do a survey, which conducted to yield more concrete answers. In this survey, there were 4 different questions. The first question, which components of TOGAF are particularly useful? The second question, what phases of the ADM are particularly useful? The third question, what steps in the respective phases are particularly useful? And the fourth question, does it make sense to apply TOGAF to small and medium business enterprises? As you look at the chart, for each of the questions, there were top 3 percentages and the results that followed. For the first question, which components of the TOGAF are particularly useful? They were found that the ADM was the most useful at 93%. And then the ADM guidelines and the architecture content framework. For the second question, that analyzed whether which of the phases of the ADM were particularly useful. It was found that the business architecture at 83% was found as the most useful. And phase A and phase C, the architectural vision and the information system architecture respectively, were found at a tie of 70%. For the third question, what steps in the respective phases are particularly useful? An overwhelming 100% found that in the phase B of business architecture, the development target business architecture was most useful. For the fourth question, does it make sense to apply TOGAF to small and medium enterprises? 84% expressed yes. It was therefore concluded that TOGAF would provide significant value to small and medium businesses. However, its usage would be better served in a more condensed, modified form. This would yield considerable cost reduction to small and medium businesses and allow the framework to be fashioned to the objectives of the company. In the article, Pattern-Oriented Approach for Enterprise Architecture, TOGAF Framework. This article provided a very intuitive approach as to how developing and utilizing pattern-oriented relationships in TOGAF would produce an effective coherent design solution that is reusable. Understanding the 10 patterns as they relate to TOGAF ADM gives rise to how these patterns can be used alongside the TOGAF ADM. As you look in the figure, there are 10 categories of patterns. Specification patterns, vision patterns, process patterns, governance patterns, migration planning patterns, usability patterns, architecture patterns, information patterns, business patterns, and interoperability patterns. Taking these patterns and using them and finding how they relate to each phase in the TOGAF ADM would allow faster design and the implementation of TOGAF in an enterprise architecture. In this article, this approach is very theoretical, and therefore, building practical research and obtaining industry feedback as to how these patterns would work and being able to analyze these patterns would be the next step in the project.
Thank you, Will. I will take it from here to discuss our further related work articles. And this particular article, titled A Critical Investigation of TOGAF Based on the Enterprise Engineering Theory and Practice. In this article, the authors discuss the successful implementation of strategic initiative depends on various factors. Research done by Kaplan and Norton concurred that at least 70 to 90% of these initiatives fail. Although there is the development of new strategies such as business process reengineering, mergers, and total quality management perspectives focus on various aspects, studies still indicate that there's failure. Scholars concurred that these designs failed to consider unification and integration of systems. The approach known as the Open Group Architecture Framework, TOGAF, is useful in enterprise IT systems. This concept acknowledges the importance of design development. TOGAF recognizes enterprise unity and integration by considering all aspects of operating system and ensuring that the process is flawless for a good result. Okay, so this next article is titled TOGAF Based Enterprise Architecture Practice, an explanatory case study. So the author examines the organizations identify the role of enterprise architecture to realize growth and meet its goals. The organizations deploy different EA methodologies in regards to their functionality. So, research confirms that TOGAF is widely used in the world. A considerable percentage of the organizations listed as Fortune 500 and Global 50 utilize TOGAF. And I believe that that number is 80% of the Global 50 utilize it, and 60% of Fortune 500 companies utilize it. Despite the existence of literature explaining the adaptation of the EA methodologies and steps that organizations should undertake, most companies disregard these instructions. The research done by the author on the adoption of TOGAF by Central Australian University discovered that only one recommendation from the EA practice was implemented. Okay, so this next article is titled Designing Enterprise Architecture Based on TOGAF 9.1 Framework. And within this article, the author explains that enterprise architecture helps the organizations by ensuring an integrated and holistic approach to improve its enterprise performance. So there are 4 types of EA frameworks, which are the Gartner, the ZAC, TOGAF, and Federal Enterprise. And one that they didn't mention was the DODAF, but I'll digress. However, TOGAF is considered superior due to its benefits such as architecture development method, which is the ADM, vendor neutrality, and integration. Organizations should be careful when considering the design methods that will help the organizations prosper. So, the organizations must look at different aspects such as business objectives and the scope of the EA design to ensure that the framework meets the required standards. Okay, and here is the last article, which is titled TOGAF ADM Planning Framework for Enterprise Architecture Development based on Health Minimum Services Standards. That was a tongue twister. HMSS at Semihigh City Health Office. Okay, so let's jump right into this one. The author brings out that the enterprise architecture planning is crucial for any business that partakes in information systems. By planning, an organization gets to analyze all factors and selects the most suitable EA design that will boost its business. The benefits of the Zachman framework includes functional integration, sufficient tools. Unfortunately, the system is static and it cannot adjust. It also talked about FEA, And the advantages of FEA, which is that it integrating business rules and segmenting management complications, nonetheless, it does not support cloud services. Now let's talk about TOGAF. TOGAF provides good integration and can be used alongside with other frameworks. And the research on the Simahai City Health Office recognized the need for system development for the information systems to be fully used. And now I am going to turn it back over to Will so that he can discuss our methods.
All right. Thank you very much, LaTresha. The Open Group Architectural Framework, known as TOGAF, is a widely used enterprise architectural framework. This framework helps companies align their IT goals with their business processes. As you will notice, there are 8 phases. These phases are known as the architectural development method. However, there is a preliminary phase, and in this phase, it involves a lot of preparation to bring a company in alignment for the introduction of a new enterprise architecture. Now, phase A, which is architectural vision, is the true initial phase. It helps an organization to outline and accurately define their scope and the goals of their enterprise architecture, as well as help identify the stakeholders. Phase B, which is business architecture, outlines how the business architecture is developed to align with phase A. Phase C, which is information systems architectures, it outlines the process and its development, which includes the data and application architectures. Phase D, technology architecture, outlines the building blocks for how technology will be used across the enterprise. Now, if you notice, the TOGAF methodology supports all 4 architectural layered domains: business architecture, application architecture, data architecture, and technical architecture. Moving on to phase E, opportunities and solutions. Now, this phase takes phase B through D's architecture and determines how they will be effectively delivered. This also outlines the initial implementation plans. Phase F, which is migration planning, organize a detailed implementation and migration plan to achieve the desired endpoint architectures. Phase G, implementation governance, creates a level chain of command and how the overall implementation and deployment process will be governed. This ensures conformity to the predefined architectural visions. Now, phase H, which is architectural change management, creates the proper procedures to monitor and manage the change in the newly developed architecture. In conjunction with ADM, the architectural content framework describes how deliverables, artifacts, and the building blocks will be structured, defined, and presented. The enterprise continuum, which is made of 2 components, architectural continuum and solutions continuum. The enterprise continuum, provides a view of architectural repository that classifies architecture and solutions artifacts from generic to enterprise specific. This allows an organization to outline its competitive advantage as its architecture and solutions evolve over time. Now, just to give you a little better understanding and viewpoint of the architectural development method, I have included the diagram that shows from A to H all of the phases, the preliminary phase, as well as the requirements management that manages each and every phase of the ADM.
All right. Thank you, Will. I am now going to talk about comparison of enterprise architectural framework. And I'm going to talk about it from 3 different table views. Table 1 is going to talk about the views and perspectives. Table 2 is a comparison of abstractions. And then the third table is going to be a comparison of SDLC. So let's jump right into table 1. So Zachman views seem to be the most comprehensive, and that is the reason why the comparison is based off of its dimensions. So Zachman framework consists of 2 different dimensions. The first dimension has 6 views, which is planner, owner, designer, builder, subcontractor, and user. So we'll start with this first dimension, and let's jump right in. So the planner includes the concepts for the final project. So it can include things such as relative size, shape, the basic intent, the scope of the work. That's all inclusive in the planner. The owner, which is the second view, represents an architect's drawing, and it includes the agreement of the owner to what the architect is capturing for whatever that project is. The third view, designer view, is the architect's final project. So here the detailed and description of the plans and all the materials that are needed is all included within this perspective. The fourth, which is builder, represents the view in which the architect's final plans are modified to reflect how construction will proceed. All right, the fifth view, which is subcontractor, represents drawings of parts or subsections of the plans. And then the final view, which is user, we can consider this to be the final project or the building. In information systems, it would reflect the user's view. And there you have it. So let's talk about DODAF. The planner view shows that it has all of those perspectives there. From the owner, it deals more on an operational view, and that is concerning the actual business. The designer or system view describes the actual existing and future systems that support the DoD and how they are physically interconnected. The technical view or the technical standards view adds details to the system's view by providing information on standard system parts or components that are currently available off the shelf, either commercially or government, and it also provides technical details and forecasts of standard technology evolution that may apply to the architecture. All right, so FEAF. This architecture currently, or should I say framework, architecture framework, it corresponds with the Zachman framework. So I think this view here is pretty self-explanatory. It does the scope, the owner's view, designer's view. It corresponds with it. The TEAF has 4 perspectives that are the same as the Zachman framework and FEAF matrix, which is the exception that the TEAF combines the builder and subcontractor into one and just calls it builder. The TOGAF is strong on business architecture and technical architecture aspects. It does not provide as much detail for planning and maintenance TOGAF is one of the most comprehensive with regards to the actual process involved. All right, so let's proceed on. So this table number 2 is a comparison of abstractions. Now remember I told you that Zachman framework has 2 dimensions. The first table was concerning that first dimension that had the 6 views. Well, this is concerning its second dimension, which answers 6 basic questions of who, what, when, why, and where. Okay, so we're going to jump into this for just a second. And I'm going to start with the FEAF, as this matrix corresponds with the Zachman framework, but they do not prescribe the approach for developing the products for each cell. And then with TEAF, the TEAF information view, which is that first one right underneath what, corresponds with the FEAF data architecture. The TEAF functional view corresponds to the FEAF application architecture, and the TEAF infrastructure view corresponds with the FEAF technology architecture. FEAF does not currently reflect the TEAF organizational view. This view shows the types of workers and organizational structure. TEAF allows the flexibility to define additional views and perspectives that focus uniquely on areas important to specific stakeholders. Now, TOGAF, this framework provides guidance toward principles for decision making and that of IT resources. Those are the architectural principles. The framework is gauged toward open system development. Okay, let's move on. And now let's talk about the comparison by SDLC phases. So SDLC stands for Systems Development Life Cycle. The framework presented can be compared to the 5 phases commonly used in the SDLC models, which are planning, analysis, design, implementation, and maintenance, all that you see here on table 3. Overall, the frameworks do not specify how the system is to be developed, but the frameworks provide the guidance that is then implemented in the SDLC. And I think the chart is pretty self-explanatory with a yes or no as to whether that is provided. What is unique is TOGAF, which, as I previously stated, this framework provides guidance toward principles of decision making and guidance of IT resources. And that is it for the comparison. I am now going to turn it over to Meredith, and she is going to proceed with analysis.
TOGAF isn't without its downfalls. One of the biggest disappointments I see people facing is the fact that it doesn't automatically tell the enterprise how to generate a good architecture. It just tells you how to generate a architecture. It requires a lot of time and experienced certified individuals to implement it. And I will go ahead and touch on my 3 criticisms of it. First off, it's not user-friendly for those just starting out. It's notoriously really overly complex and too academic. It takes a while to learn, and it's very difficult to understand. Some say it's a foreign language to them. Proper implementers come at a price too, and this includes both in money and in time. To become certified, it lasts upwards of 24 months, and if a company were to hire a certified employee, their salary starts around $80,000 a year. So it's a significant financial commitment, even if TOGAF itself is initially free. And finally, the architecture is still missing a lot of pieces. So the customizability that they promote also adds to the complexity of it all. And these missing pieces require a company to utilize other resources to fill in the gaps. So having all these other resources makes it hard for everything to connect and flow properly. So ideally, all these rooms for improvement would be filled so that TOGAF really does everything it's supposed to without the help of other resources. But ultimately, as with any EA, one size just doesn't fit all. People have to do the proper research and make sure that it's right for them. And they also need to have very qualified people implementing it and who are committed and on board. And just having the right team is really vital in it all and making the right decision.
Okay, so here's my analysis of TOGAF. It is an EA approach that allows a firm to manage its services across all the departments seamlessly. It is advantageous to management as it integrates business operation and information transfer. The two main elements of TOGAF, architecture development method and architecture content framework, are the main reasons why the EA approach is used worldwide. However, here's a few critiques concerning this EA. It is a complex system and the implementation can be tedious. TOGAF is a sophisticated approach and it requires the organization to learn and understand its standards before adopting. It is a difficult framework to learn. And because it's a difficult framework to learn, as institutions adopt the framework, they have to make sure that they adjust and align everything with the organization's objectives. The onboarding process can be long for management to comprehend, and the design and conduct proper implementation. It is a complex system, as I stated, and implementation can be tedious. So, management must comprehend the design before implementing, as mismanaging may hurt the business.
Through my research, I've been able to see how TOGAF is an excellent framework for enterprise architecture. It provides a comprehensive blueprint. Its four layered architecture domains, main components, as well as the powerhouse phases in the architectural development method give it a competitive advantage. This robust framework, though it is very involved, provides a total solution to any company's enterprise architecture. However, with any giant, it has its flaws. TOGAF is ideal for the large corporation, but the implementation of this framework is anything but cost effective. Providing a more scalable solution so that small and medium business enterprises can benefit is a great area of opportunity. TOGAF is designed as a total package and can be very useful in the smaller frame so that even a novice can introduce it into their company. As it was said before, TOGAF is a pretty complicated framework. I believe that the ADM diagram is the lifeline that brings the most value into how the framework operates. It is very understandable that successful implementation of this framework would require TOGAF certification.
All right, so in conclusion, enterprise architecture is a broad field that helps the corporations to manage their operations effectively through the adoption of various frameworks. Various scholars have argued that many companies have adopted TOGAF to promote their business. This demonstrates the flexibility and functionality of this framework. Information technology is an essential factor in the modern era as institutions strive to ensure smooth flow of operations across all departments and branches. Research shows that the TOGAF has proven to be an effective in organizations. Firms have adopted this framework in their systems to align their business and IT strategy to boost their growth. The two elements of TOGAF, provide a basic approach for the organization to improve its operations. This EA framework promotes a comprehensive approach whereby the organization can transfer information and conduct business across the departments. All right, so now let's talk about our case study. This is the design of my case study, and I'm going to show you in a much bigger view what it looks like. So within the case study, TOGAF Enterprise Architecture, done by myself, LaTresha Reed, I highlighted some key factors. In 1995, TOGAF was developed. 80% of Global 50 companies use it. 60% of Fortune 500 companies use it. Those are important statistics to know. I included the sections Introduction, History, Analysis, and Conclusion. And the reason why, because an intro is always important. The history is important too as well, because when researching information concerning this framework, it's good to know where it came from, how it was developed, and how it came to be. From there, I went on to the analysis to analyze this framework, and then I gave my conclusion concerning what I thought about the framework in and of itself. I included my references, and to the left of the page, I used the ADM pictorial because it is very important to understanding and comprehending the TOGAF enterprise architecture. I hope that you enjoyed my case study. Thank you.
Hello guys, it's Meredith again, and I am just going to do a little bit of a rundown of what I did for my case study. Starting off at the top, we have TOGAF's logo, and the little saying that they like to be known for is the de facto global standard for enterprise architecture. And this is because 80% of Global 50 companies utilize their business and they are just very popular. So for the introduction, I just did a little bit of a rundown I thought was important. And then on the right, I include highlights. So very major milestones, such as in April 2018 when they had their biggest rollout of their updated version. I found that to be important. And then I went ahead and included this image here. I found to be one of the most descriptive that I've seen. It talks about the requirements management A through H and also the 9 different steps. And it's also worth noting that the order of the steps should be adapted to the situation to determine whether to do a baseline business architecture or target business architecture development first. And then I went ahead and included my analysis and my 3 main points of my analysis. And that is about all I included in it.
Here's my case study on the Open Group Architectural Framework, which is TOGAF. In this case study, I designed a simple way of outlining some of what I viewed as some of the most important aspects of TOGAF. First, I thought it was important to know what TOGAF was, and then also as well the methodology behind TOGAF, which is the architectural development method. And to bring all of those phases together, I thought it was very important to include a diagram showing and outlining every phase of the TOGAF development method. And then also as well to include some related works to show what research is out there, the things that have been conducted, and what opportunities TOGAF can provide over many arenas of enterprise architecture. And then I included my references that will provide the information to the researcher for more and deeper study.
Lastly, here is the reference page to show all the different references that we use to construct this project. It has been a pleasure, and Will, if you have anything else that you would like to add, then go for it.
No, LaTresha, I think that's all. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us in our email, and we'll be able to address your concerns. Thank you very much for your time.